Losing a child is a traumatic event for the whole family, but do parents deal with it differently? How do fathers cope with bereavement? Jarlath Corrigan is in studio. Good morning to you, Jarlath.
Good morning.
Listen, tell us what happened to your son, Cian.
Well, Cian just woke up one Monday morning, heading to school, and he said he had a funny pain in his arm. It wasn't really a pain, he just said he had a weakness in his arm. And we just
What age was he at this stage, Jarlath?
Cian was 11 at that age, and he was a very active child. We just thought it was an injury over the weekend. We said, look, go to school and we'll sort it out this evening, whatever. We just thought he slept in it, actually, to be honest. But it turned out he came home that evening, he said he was going to have to take me to the doctor because the kids were laughing in school at me because I couldn't catch the football today. So we took him straight away to A&E and Craigavon, and they done blood testing out there and couldn't find anything. And they asked us to come back in a few days' time, and we said, look, he's sitting his 11 plus exams. So they said, look, don't worry about it, come back on Monday. Took him back on the Monday, and they done more tests, and the doctor said, look, we want him in tomorrow to do an emergency MRI. We think there's something wrong with his neck.
And over the weekend, were yourself and your wife is Rachel, what were you thinking the worst at this stage?
No, we weren't, because they said not to worry about it. We said, was there anything to worry about? And they said no. They said, look, don't worry about it, come back on Monday and we'll start from there. So we went back on Monday, as I say, and they done an MRI, and that's where the nightmare started, really. It revealed that he had a tumour in the spinal cord. And they rushed him straight down to the Royal, and it started from there, really. He spent 100 days in intensive care after being diagnosed. Just it was a nightmare, just to be honest.
I can't even begin to imagine how difficult that is.
Yeah, it was very hard to deal with, but at the time you find the strength from somewhere, and you just have to keep going. And we just got on with things as best, because we weren't actually told that it was terminal at that stage. It was maybe 3 weeks later we were told that it was terminal.
And how long did he spend in hospital before you both decided to take him home?
He spent 100 days in intensive care, so he did. He went into hospital in November, and we got him home on the 12th of March. He went to the hospice for a week in Belfast, and then we got him home on the 19th of March. And
that must have been extraordinarily difficult to be told he was given. The doctors basically gave him a couple of weeks, but to have survived, to have lived 100 days, and to have sort of glimmers of hope throughout that time as well.
It led us into, I suppose, a false sense of security, because initially, we were given 2 weeks, and the longer it went on, we were thinking he's going to beat this, and it was so rare. Cian was the only child in the world ever to get what he got at that stage, and it only been 17 adults. And the longer it went on, they knew so little about it themselves. It had to go to a worldwide panel to actually diagnose what he had. So they knew so little, and the longer it went on, the falser things became for us. We were looking for all the wrong things. We were told, if he lost more movement, that it was spreading. But what actually happened, Cian, in the end, was he took a bleed in the brain. And we weren't told any of these things, but it was just one of them things, I suppose.
How was he himself in those last days?
Well, I have to say, Cian never lost his sense of humour or a smile. He definitely was an amazing child. His whole time in intensive care, all he was doing was worrying about the other kids. An incubator, small babies. Not that he was an amazing child, definitely was. But he never lost his sense of humour. He just got on with as best he could.
And when did he pass away, Jarlath?
He passed away on the 8th of May.
And what were those first days like, if you can even begin to try and explain?
Cian, what actually happened, Cian, was, things was going grand, he'd hit a plateau, and then all of a sudden he took a bleed in the brain, and, it was totally out of the blue, and, we weren't expecting it, and then he died. He took a bleed in the brain the Friday, and he died the following Friday. And, it was just so sudden, it was just unreal. It was so surreal, and it didn't feel right. You didn't feel like you were there. It felt like you were actually watching from the outside looking in, and very, very dark days now, I have to say.
And after his death, how did you cope?
Well, the night before Keane was buried, I was talking to a couple of friends of mine and that there, and I suppose peer pressure, not peer pressure, but I wanted to do something to mark Keane's life. And, his short life, and, I sat down that night and I just thought about what was important to Keane, and football was important to Keane. And what actually happened was we never ever told Keane how sick he was, because, he'd nothing to gain from it. And Keane was actually quadriplegic before he actually got operated on. His tumour ruptured and he lost his voice and lost all his power. So he had nothing to gain, but he said to me one day whenever he gained back his voice, he said, "Daddy, when I get better," he says, will you throw me a party? And I said, "Yeah, I'll throw you a massive party, the biggest party I've ever seen." So I decided whenever, the night before he was buried, that it was going to mark Keane's short life. And I threw myself into things like that to myself and Rachel. And that's what kept us going, give us something to focus on, and I suppose it deterred the grief more than anything. We didn't deal with it as normally as we should have, because we were just too busy thinking of
organising and focusing and with the funeral arrangements. And so for you it was keeping busy, anything to focus on. Did you feel that you had to be stronger for the rest of your family at that stage?
Yeah, well, I had friends and family saying, Jarlath, you're going to have to be strong, and you're going to have to keep the family together and try and get things back to normal, some sort of normality. And I did feel that pressure.
Did you distract yourself with that then?
I did, yeah. As I say, I threw myself into. I was thinking months down the road. I was thinking about what Keane wanted. And thinking about things that I shouldn't have been thinking, I suppose, about then. But it helped me at the time. And as I say, I was thinking of myself. I was thinking of Rachel and the two girls. And the eldest son Shane. And it was just gather momentum. It was just pressure after pressure after pressure, and I didn't know how to deal with it. And I suppose eventually, it caught up with me in the end. I had to seek counselling and that there. I had to deal with it in my own way. And
were you angry at in the days and weeks after?
Oh yes,
Keane's
very
passing?
angry. Yeah, why did it happen to Keane? Not so much angry at my pain and my loss, but it's his loss. Just an innocent child, and why did it happen to him?
Did you? I mean, yesterday, I don't know if you heard, I was speaking to the parents of Garda Kieran Jones,
I did, yeah.
who died during the floods last year, and his father, John, was very emotional yesterday. And it was Brid who really was almost trying to keep it together.
Well, it would have been the same in my own relationship with Rachel. Rachel was definitely my rock, unknown to her. And as I say, society sort of had put pressure. It puts pressure on the fathers. You have to be strong. You have to show the leadership. You have to keep things going and together.
But within your four walls, did you break down?
Oh, I did.
And for Rachel to be there to comfort you.
Yeah.
But you felt that outside you needed to be the one to show.
Yeah, as I say, friends and family were saying to me, you have to keep the whole thing going. And it's just, looking back now, I didn't give myself any time to grieve, and it didn't, I did become angry, and, I suppose it's your own way of, the body's way of dealing with things. You ask yourself all these different questions, but you have more questions than you have answers.
Where did you go looking for help?
Well, initially I went to my own doctor and I was referred for counselling. And then I met another couple. We met another couple, Mac and Maria McHenry, and we met them at a retreat sort of thing for bereaved families. And they told us about Anam Cara and, what they got out of Anam Cara, and it seemed like it would do us.
Because the counselling didn't work for you. You didn't connect, or
it was very hard dealing with a counsellor, and I've seen maybe 2 or 3 counsellors, and each of them have said to me, I can't imagine what you're going through, and so it was very hard to deal with somebody that didn't have an insight into what I was actually going through, and to be quite honest, I couldn't be open, because I didn't want to frighten them, and you could actually see the fear on them people's faces, and they were just saying, like, I can't imagine where you are. I really, really can't imagine. And, you know, so it was harder, you know, I couldn't be myself then. It was that mask on again, and, you know, you'd only tell them snippets of actually what you were actually feeling.
Well, Brid Carroll also joins me in studio this morning, and Brid is a bereavement counsellor working in the southeast area. Brid, good morning to you. First of all,
good morning, Catherine.
You work with people like Jarlath, who grieve. I mean, firstly, it must be a very difficult job to do. I mean, as Jarlath said, you really have to try and connect and understand in every way possible what that person is going through.
Absolutely, and I think very few counsellors actually have an understanding of parental grief when they have lost a child. I think by its nature it's devastating, it's traumatic. We don't, as the cliche says, expect our children to go before us, but it's actually a loss of the future as well as the child. So the dreams, the hopes, all of the genetics to the future are shattered. I think we have to consider that, you know, these are losses that happen in early childhood, middle childhood, teens, right into adult life. That we have much older parents who lose children as well. I always feel it's privileged work to walk the walk with them. I suppose I have known losses myself. I've lost a child at stillbirth, and I've lost my grandson, our first grandchild, at 8 days old. So, you know, being able to be with these parents, I think what Jarlath talks about when he meets a group, the difference in Anam Cara is that there is a group of parents who have been bereaved. So the sense of isolation disappears. Suddenly there are other people, their stories may be very different from yours, but they are bereaved parents. And coming together then, the sense of isolation is gone, and you can actually share your story without feeling people must think I'm daft when I'm saying this or that.
And just listening to you, Jarlath, and I never actually sat down and thought about that, the outward emotion that you have to put out as a man.
Absolutely.
To stay strong, be there for your wife, be there for your other kids, and constantly having that pressure, it must make it very difficult for men to grieve.
If we actually think of Irish society, we see men as the protectors.
Yeah.
If you think of it in terms of a funeral, men are sent out to make the arrangements immediately. Perhaps if it's a traumatic death, to identify a body. So we don't even give them the time with their grief. I think the other thing that causes the difficulty is that men grieve silently a lot of the time. In the sense that their thinking stands them in grief. You know, how many times do we hear Irish women saying, Usher himself, you wouldn't have a clue what's going on in his head because he's not talking. We as women, and I think we do grave injustice to our men folk, actually chat our way through grief. We find friends, we talk to them. Men often need a task to work their way through grief. I think of a dad once who, when I went into his farm place, he had lost his daughter. There was a big open span shed in the yard. When I went back a few weeks later, there was doors, windows, the whole lot in it. And I said, gosh, you've been busy.
To distract.
He says, Brid, he says, there's a lot of tears in those blocks. And it's actually a task that has a beginning, a middle and an end. So that in that task, could be the corner of the garden that's been dug in the rain. It can be, you know, we think of Eric Clapton having written the song Tears from Heaven. But men need a task. Jarlath referred to it in all of the things he was going to do in memory of Keane, because needing to remember our children is vital. That we need to know that other people will remember this child that is lost.
Should men attend counselling with their spouses, or should they do it alone in the beginning?
I think it's a matter of choice, but what I find happening is often, if I can actually meet the couple, they begin to understand that their grieving styles are different. And they actually can then have much more tolerance of each other in that, because then they can actually see the nuances in a day. You know, Jarlath and I were talking earlier, the non-verbal that goes on. I know by the look in her face she's having a bad day today, or she knows by me because I'm going around a little bit stroppy or whatever, that there's something happening. I think one of the amazing things I see with bereaved parents is that, I don't know how it happens, but it's like a seesaw. I don't usually see both of them down at the one time. One seems to be up, able to hold the other, or down, you know, so it seems to just counterbalance. I don't know why. I think Jarlath would agree with me on it, but you see it happening, and many, many couples will tell you that.
Was that your experience, Jarlath?
Definitely was, yeah. And even, I would even say that even transformed through to the kids. You know, the kids would see you down and they would try and make you happy, you know, and like, our youngest girl, Kate, was only 7 now, and at that time she was only 4.5. You know, and she would come over and give you a big hug and tell you a joke or whatever. So they can actually read the body language too.
And that surely then must cause tension between spouses as well. You know, when somebody is up and somebody's down, that would put a lot of stress on a relationship.
I think one of the things we say when couples have lost a child, it puts massive stress on the individual, just the people we are, on the couple then, because we often don't realise, you know, and if you turn around and think about that in early infant loss, where a dad hasn't really had the opportunity to build a relationship with his child, whereas mum has carried that child for 9 months, there's a huge misunderstandings can arise, and that's where tension can really come into play. Yeah. The other side of it can be for older parents that, you know, maybe a dad has a huge expectation that his son's going to inherit the farm. Perhaps his son has been lost in a road accident or, you know, to suicide or in other traumatic ways. And suddenly the meaning of his son's life is absolutely gone. And it's like, how do you make meaning out of this from here on?
How do you alleviate those tensions? I mean, what can couples do?
I think one of the key things that's so essential is actually communicating, being able to talk to each other. It's not always easy, because so often if we're thinking our way through loss, we get lost in our own silences. We probably don't even notice that we are silent. But I think that piece where we can actually sit and talk to somebody or attend a group like Anam, Cara. Like, I mean, at this stage, there's 11 or 12 groups all over the country at this stage that have meetings once a month. And even going together to a meeting, you may not want to go back after the first one or that, and maybe just necessary to get the information you need. Yeah. You may find, yes, it's really beneficial when you go back several times, but it's actually the idea of attending something like that and suddenly realising, yes, other people have actually got this experience too. It's not just us.
Tell us the benefits of Anam, Cara for you, Jarlath, you and Rachel.
Well, what I found for myself was that I felt normal. You know, when I heard other fathers, you know, telling their experience of their loss, you know, it made me feel normal, because I could, you know, I went through, you know, some of the same things as what they were going through, and, you know, it made me feel normal, you know, and that I wasn't going mad, and that, you know, the emotions and the pain that I was feeling was normal. Yeah. You know?
And that other men were feeling this pressure from society as well.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the Keane's GAA jersey.
Right. Well, Keane was born in Dublin here, and we lived in actually Meath at the time, but he was Dublin on the brain, and we moved back to Tyrone in 2004, and he got caught up in the hype of Tyrone's success then. And, you know, to be honest, Keane never kicked the ball till he was about 6 years of age. He would have stepped over a ball before he would have kicked it, but then he got involved with a little fella up the road, Connor, and they became best friends, and Connor was just football mad. Keane got the bug for it then, and they joined the same club, and as I say, Keane was just, the GA was just everything in Keane's life. You know, we just wanted to emulate some of his heroes, and after he died, you know, we sat down and we thought about, you know, what was important to Keane, and what was important to Keane was Dublin, Tyrone, and our own local club, the Dungannon Thomas Clarks. So myself and Rachel just sat down one night, and we were actually doing a gala ball in Keane's memory. It was the party that he never got to see, and we decided then that we designed this jersey, half Dublin, half Tyrone, and the local club collar, you know, in Keane's memory. So it's called the Keane jersey, and all proceeds go to the Children's Hospice in the north of Ireland.
So that's lovely. It's a gorgeous idea. Are you still attending meetings? Are you still going to the Anam, Cara meetings yourself?
Yeah. I'm actually one of the facilitators in the north of Ireland for Anam, Cara. So.
And I'm assuming as well for you to be a facilitator now, you know, and that is also aiding you with your own grief, the fact that you can now extend out and help others.
Yeah, well, you know, that's all you want to do is, you know, you want to help other people now, because there's so little out there, you know, like Anam, Cara covers a lot of different deaths, you know, bereavements, you know, it could be suicide, it could be sudden death, it could be road crash, it could be cancer, it could be anything. So, you know, it's not just for any one society.
All right, Brid, you said communication. I'm just thinking for anybody listening out there who's maybe, going through the loss of a child. You said communication is vital. What other advice or help would you give out?
I think bereaved parents often need to let people around them know what their needs are. And often, if it's even something as practical as, take the ironing and do it for us, please, or mow the grass because I can't look at it anymore. And I think even in the workplace, when dads in particular return to work, one of the things that often happens is that bosses and others are asking them how the wife and the children are, but don't actually ask them who they are. And I think society at large needs to actually address dads and recognise that they may be grieving silently, but by golly, they are grieving. And I think that's one of the key things that we need to recognise, and even in the extended family, because we do feel helpless. We feel helpless when we see this, because bereaved parents are actually going through our worst fear realised, really. And, we can shy away, but it's actually, asking them, how are you today?
Yeah.
What's actually happening for you? Because they're trying to make meaning out of the loss of this child.
Yeah.
And as Jarlath says, it takes a lifetime.
Yeah. So we need to mind our men. We need to mind our fathers.
Absolutely.
How can people get in touch with Anam Cara?
Through the website www.animcara.ie, and on that there's a forum, so if somebody has a question they can actually put their question through. Contact numbers are there, and there's an office number on the site as well that they can contact if they actually want to talk to somebody if they have an issue at the moment. And I know people use that every day, and it is a really excellent resource for them.
Okay.
And for bereaved parents.
All right, well, Brid, Carroll, thank you very much. And
thank you, Catherine.
Jarlath, thanks so much for coming in and speaking honestly. And I know there's dads listening all over the country that you've helped out this morning and made us all think about it, made us all think about the issue. So thanks a million. Back after this.